It was another monster recruiting weekend for Utah football. Several players committed, one crystal balled, and an elite offensive lineman where it right now projected Ohio State, Texas. What happened? We're going to discuss on today's Locked On Utes.
You are Locked On Utes, your daily podcast on the Utah Utes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for making Locked On Utes your first listen and view of the day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. If it's your first time tuning into the show, make sure you like and subscribe. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. My name is JT Wistrcill, and on today's show, we're going to be talking all things recruiting. Utah has a player crystal ball to them. Also, at the end of the show, we'll talk about Felix Ojo. There was some excitement with the visit this weekend that Utah was able to land one of the top offensive linemen in the country on a visit, but now there's been some reports from On3 that he's down to Ohio State and Texas, so we'll talk about what's going on there, but have to start out just with the fact that Utah has landed several commits. Let's talk about, rather than talk about like what could be, what might happen, who knows, let's talk about what has happened, and that is Utah picking up several commitments. The first one, the most recent one I want to talk about, is Javian Rammon. So Rammon comes over, a defensive end who's from Texas, to 6'6", 250 pounds. He's a guy who runs a 4.7 40, and he's a guy who he's a 3-star defensive end. He took his official visit over the weekend. He's not the most highly sought after player. Had a Baylor offer was his most other high profile offer, but I'm a big fan of his game, just turning on the tape. What do you turn on when you see it? Right away, you see speed, the power rush too, the athleticism, the toughness. He's good against the run. And he just, probably continues to need to grow into his body and develop in a few ways. But for right now, this guy I really like. He's got the power. He's got the tenacity, like refine the technique a little bit. And I do think this can be a defensive end for Utah who ends up stepping up for them in the future. I mean, you look at this defensive end room, right? There's a lot of transfers that this team's added, but what does the future look like, right? Especially, obviously, Rammon isn't a guy. I don't expect him to contribute as a true freshman, so he'd be a guy who contributes a couple years down the road, right? So, like, what's the future of the Utah defensive end room look like? I mean, you got guys like John Henry Daly and Paul Fitzgerald, who maybe they're wrapping up their senior year, considering I don't know how much they'll contribute this year, probably a little bit, but still probably have 3 years of eligibility left, those guys do. So would project them to still be part of things. Cash Dillon is a guy I think can be hot. I think he has a bright future too. So Rammon's a guy that just the speed, that power, the athleticism, I like what I see in him. And I see why Utah was a big fan of him, and mentioned he's a 3-star right now. We'll see what kind of a year he has. There's a chance that could go up, but he's a guy with the profile that I do think has the chance to be very successful at the collegiate level. And the fact that Luther Ellis is going to be in charge of developing him and helping him grow into the player that I think he can be, I think that's incredibly exciting too. So big fan of Rammon's game. I think he can be a dude for the University of Utah football team. This is a guy I'm excited to see what ends up happening, but what he ends up developing into, but really like the signs that I saw on tape and looking forward to seeing what he can become at Utah. Just like I liked what I saw on tape from the first guy that Utah landed over the weekend, Perrin Williams, the 6 foot, 163 pound athlete from California, committed to Utah. He's a 3-star. He's the 74th ranked athlete in the country, according to 24/7 Sports, a top 90 player in the state of California for this class overall. And he had offers from Colorado State, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, just to name a few, but Utah ends up being the one to land him. And what are they adding in Williams? And I will say right away, mentioned 6 foot, 163 as an athlete. I do watch him and I go, that's a wide receiver. I think he is going to be a wide receiver at the University of Utah. And what Utah is getting with him as a wide receiver is someone who possesses elite speed and athleticism, someone who can take the top off the defense and is a good route runner too, who's taught to who does a good job of breaking tackles and open field, tracks the ball well in the air, can be a bevy of coverages, willing to block also too, and could be a guy on special teams. I think early when you look at some of the hits and tackles and the athleticism, I could see him in his true freshman year maybe being a special teams guy first, and then as he continues to build and add on to that strength, 163 right now, I think he could continue to add a little bit more strength, but obviously don't want to add too much because you don't want to lose the slipperiness that makes him such a difficult player to track down in the open field. And he's a guy that I definitely like. I think this is a guy who can be a wide receiver for Utah in the near future too. This is one of the first few additions we're seeing, from Mike Asaihia, Utah's new wide receiver coach. So what kind of wide receivers does he like? Well, everyone likes a wide receiver that can get open, that can take the top off a defense, that can make guys miss. And Williams has those abilities, and those are abilities that translate to the next level pretty easily. So I think this is a really nice get for Utah football that they're able to land a guy like Williams, just that speed, as I mentioned, like it just pops off the tape. And having a receiver too that can take the top off the defense is so valuable. And something too, Utah's had guys like that, right? Money Parks has been able to do it, but the question for Utah then is like, hey, can you match it up where you have the receiver and the quarterback to take advantage of that? And that's what I hope that Utah is going to be able to have in Williams and whoever ends up being the quarterback. But really like his game and what he's able to bring too. So that brings us to our next recruit. Utah football, a monster weekend. As I mentioned, they landed commit after commit, and this one, Rowdy Pierce, which is a great offensive lineman name. He is a offensive lineman from Texas, interior offensive lineman, 6'3.5", 285 pounds, a 3-star, the 94th ranked interior offensive lineman in the class, and the 173rd ranked player in the state of Texas. Had offers from Utah, Rice, Houston, Arkansas State, and Dartmouth. So do like that Utah was able to beat out a fellow Big 12 school here. And what do I see when I turn on Pierce? First of all, he's a shot and disc champion, which I absolutely love. Just shows you that raw strength and power that he possesses. And I do think that's the biggest thing that stands out to me about his game right now is this the strength and the potential to grow into that frame and be a guy for Utah. He plays tackle at the high school level. He's definitely going to be a guard on the interior too. He's a guy, I do think that I don't watch him and I go, okay, that's a guy who's going to start as a true freshman because that only the Spencer Finals of the world can do that, right? But if you're telling me 2-3 years down the road in the program, he ends up emerging as a guard, I could see that because the tenacity is there, right? I think there's some technique things, just continue to work on those. He's not the greatest athlete, but those are things too that I think with time, training, all those things, he's not even a senior yet, he can get there. And honestly, when I just watch offensive linemen, right, like especially right now, it's like, okay, do you have that mean streak? Do you have that tenacity? And he does. He absolutely possesses that. And that to me is what gets exciting for Utah football, is that you have a guy that is willing to bring that, you have a guy that wants to come in, be physical, and shine in the trenches. And this is a program that has good history of trench play. So I do think that Pierce is a guy who Jim Harding can absolutely work with and rise up. No, it's not the offensive line commit that everyone wanted over the weekend, but still nice to beef up some guys in the trenches too overall. It's just nice to see Utah beef up this class, right? Like this is a class that Utah had to get to work in, to put it, plainly. They just did not have a lot. And the last few weeks, they've really started to pick up steam. And they've added several quality players, I think is the best way to put it. They do not have a 3-star yet. Their class overall ranks 65th in total. So yeah, you'd like to see that get up. I'd like to see Utah, even a team that focuses more on the portal, I'd like to see that get inside the top 10, but it's not in the top 10 of the Big 12, obviously. Yes. But I'd love to see that in the top 50. We'll see what Utah can end up getting there. So either way, nice for Utah to land several of these guys, and they weren't done either. They're crystal ball to get another player. We're going to talk about this recruiting class as a whole, as well as whatever's going on with Ojo, as we mentioned too, that we heard was reported that the visit went well, but now it's down to Texas and Ohio State. So we're going to talk about all of that in one moment. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our great friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. Whether I'm playing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride in the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action, too. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and you can make even regular season games feel like must-watch events. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnCollege. That's all, /LockedOn. It's all caps, no spaces. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Baseball, obviously we don't have NBA right now. College football will be here around the corner though. FanDuel is the place to be. Once again, bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins with FanDuel. All right, we talked about the 3 guys committed to Utah so far, but they were also crystal balled another addition, which I found incredibly exciting because this is a guy has been making plays in the state of Utah for a few years now. Asaihia Gala, and I apologize if I mispronounced that name, but he is a safety out of Timpview, and he's 6'1", 185. This is a guy who's been making plays for a few years now, and he's got some major interests: Utah, BYU, UCLA, Arizona, ASU, all looking after him. Well, he's been crystal balled to Utah by 24/7 Sports. He's the 71st ranked player in the safety position and the 10th ranked in the state of Utah. Yeah, is he the 10th best in the state of Utah? I would say this. I actually think he might be a little better. I really like his game. He has tremendous ball skills. The amount of interceptions that he was able to make over the course of his career so far, it's been miraculous. And the types of interceptions too, they're just, whoa, they're ones that make you go like, how did he grab that? There's so many quick reaction plays. Ball gets deflected or tipped off another guy and boop, he's got it in his hands, right? He's just an elite athlete who plays the ball so well in the air. I mentioned the interceptions, but the balls he's able to deflect away. He's so good in coverage. He can do a variety of things too. He reads quarterbacks' eyes so well. He's long, athletic, can change directions with ease too. Nice hands and really just great eyes, great instincts too. And someone who's willing to be physical as well too. This is a guy, once again, like I think right away could be a special team guy and watching a year or two, and he could be a player for Utah at the safety position. With Utah's history of strong safety play, he absolutely fits the bill as like a guy who lines up in this system and just makes sense as a strong safety. When you watch what he's able to do, and not a strong safety, I think he's more of a free safety. What I meant was saying he's going to be a very strong addition to the safety room for Utah if they are able to finish out this crystal ball prediction and actually land him. So really big fan of what he could bring to. And obviously anytime Morgan Scally, Sharif Shaw are in a DB, we trust. So yeah, I mean, it's a really good weekend for Utah, right? They've landed several guys now. This is a class that's now up to 10 commits. It was I think they had 2 like at the beginning of the month, and they even had 3, and then Simpson, the tight end, he ends up decommitting, right? So this is a Utah team that has started to build some momentum, and they've got some guys. Now, what do I think of this class as a whole? Is this class a home run? I don't think you can say that this class is a home run because this class right now lacks 4-star talent. I'd like to see Utah add another 4-star. And honestly, I don't know if it's going to be a home run, even if you do get a 4-star talent. Now, granted, if you land that like Ojo, the guy that reports are from on 3, on 3, Ohio State and Texas are the 2 that were in, right? But we heard that Utah had a good visit with him. So there was obviously some hope there. Although it was always a long shot. I think even what Steve Bartle had a good quote in his article where he said, this comes to us from Steve Bartle of KSLSports.com, talking about Ojo. Utah faces a major battle with Texas, which is considered the favorite to land him. However, according to a source, Utah knocked it out of the park. And based on the experience this weekend, there's a great deal of motivation to continue on this run for Ojo. So Utah's given their best bet. But yeah, he's from Texas. It's going to be an uphill battle. We'll touch more on that in the last segment. But like, yes, obviously if you land him, the highest recruit in program history, then that would make this the best class ever. But right now, for Utah, they even just don't land. If this Utah team just stays with what they got, they've added several quality additions. It's just not a great class right now. Like could it end up being a great class when we look back on it and go like, whoa, he stepped up. Like, yes, that's absolutely the case of what it could end up being overall. But that's one thing that's just going to be very interesting to see how it all ends up working out for this Utah team in total. So yeah, is this a great class for Utah? No, it's not. You don't have the game-changing talent that you landed with Spencer Fano, Caleb Lomu, at the time Hunter Erickson, get my wires crossed, Hunter Clegg, football, not basketball, and then Smith Snowden. Like, this class doesn't have that level of talent yet, but what it does have are several quality players that Utah has built their program on, right? We talked about LaMarcus Bell. I really like what he brings, the physical back coming out of Oregon. I think he could end up, he's their highest rated player. He's an 89. If you were to say right now, like, okay, what will he end up being? Like, I'm very high on him potentially being the best guy from this class. He's top 25 at his position overall, second best player in the state of Oregon, right? We've talked about Preston Pitts before, a linebacker who's going to be an edge guy. He's got some upside. Michael Johnson, the dual threat ability, the Georgia quarterback, definitely a fan of what he could bring. We already talked about Williams, the athleticism. You got a guy with wide receiver 1 potential if you're Utah, right? You get a LeGarry Mitchell, a linebacker from Idaho who plays with some physicality. Speaking of physicality, Pierce, we talked about the interior offensive lineman. Major Hitchin, a cornerback on the outside. Carter Stewart, another safety you're going to get. Bear Fisher's a guy that we got to talk a little bit more about him at some point. We haven't done a breakdown on him yet. And then we talked about Rammon, right? So what did I just mention? Tons of quality players with a chance to make a difference at Utah. You know what that sounds like to me? 3-star players, because that is what this Utah team has done a really good job at landing. 3-star, even some 2-star guys, right? That come on and Utah helps them develop and reach their talent, right? And not all of these, not all 10 of these guys, right? Like news flash for how recruiting works. And all of you who listen to this pod know this. Not all 10 of these guys are going to start for Utah, especially in the modern world of college football. Let's just call it what it is. I hope every single one of these individuals comes to Utah, balls out, shines, gets drafted. That's just not realistic. If you look at the modern world of college football, and I'm not even talking about these guys not working out in Utah, talk about them transferring. How many recruits have we talked about on the show in the past that we've gotten excited about? We're going to continue to cover recruiting. Recruiting matters. Although I've also said before, I don't know if it's ever mattered less, even though it's still very important because you can't suck at recruiting or you will suck. But if you miss on recruits, not only are there other recruits to cover it up, which by that logic, there's always been, right? But the transfer portal is the biggest thing. For Utah, right? Like your quarterback development has let you down. Like last year, it was absolutely atrocious. Obviously, the quarterback play for Utah just wasn't very good, right? And the development wasn't there. So what ended up happening? Utah went in the transfer portal and they got Devin Dampier. Can you imagine if the transfer portal wasn't a thing and we just had to rely on Isaac Wilson finding his groove in year two? That's a tall task with how he looked. Do I think Isaac could eventually figure it out with this university? I do. Do I think he's going to be a guy who leads them to Big 12 titles? Probably not, but I'd love to be proven wrong. But either way, that's just the nice thing now is that, hey, some of these guys that Utah's landing in recruits, they're going to hit on. Some of them are going to be hopefully stars at this university, have really long and successful careers, be multi-year starters and shine up, and we'll get to say their names on senior day and it'll buzz. But a lot of them will probably transfer too. What Utah is doing with this recruiting class is they do every year is they are adding talent with upside to me that has these guys will come in. Some of them are high ceiling, low floor. Some of them are low ceiling, high floor, I'd say, based on each of these 3-star players. That's what 3-star is such a broad spectrum, right? Like there's all kinds of different 3 stars. There's all kinds of different 4 stars. There's even different kinds of 5 stars, right? Because you'll have the Trevor Lawrence of the world, right? Where he was this 5-star that can't miss QB prospect. And he ended up blowing up the hype, won a national championship right away, right? And then you have some 5 stars that just end up disappointing. It's like, oh, he's a 5-star talent. I think he's going to be a really good player. Like there's different levels to the stuff like that. I think Utah has all kinds of 3 stars that they've added in this class that have a wide range of talent and just what they could end up doing and being as well too. So very intrigued and excited by what Utah has done with this class so far. And I am optimistic and hopeful that they'll continue to land additions. I'd like to see them land a 4-star. Last year, that was Polu. At the time, Thatcher, and then he dropped a little bit too. I'm still very high on those two. I think those two are, by the time they're done at Utah, we'll look at both of them like they were 4-star players. So does Utah have a 4-star here? I think Bell could end up being that guy. A couple of the other guys could end up being stars. Like I think Michael Johnson has a shot too, but we'll see. Like there's a lot of potential in this room. Who's going to maximize it? That's where I'm very interested to see how this all ends up shaking out. What Kyle Whittingham's brought in, Utah's GM, Robert Bletchen has also brought in as part of the GM, such a vital role in the sport, in the structure of a college football program too now, right? Too. So we'll see what ends up happening. I like this class so far. This class is not a home run to me. You lost out on too many of the best guys in the state. If you can land Celesi Moa, that's different. But you lost out on Bat Mulitalo. You lost out on Brock Harris. Helaman Kasuga is not coming to Utah. The best players in the state are going elsewhere, and 2 of those 3 I just mentioned are also headed to BYU. That hurts. So can Utah still make up the difference, add some talented guys? Of course, but it's hard to say this class is a home run or this is a great class when you don't have a 4-star talent. And honestly, multiple 4-star talents would be nice just in the era of college football currently. But you know what else would also be nice? A 5-star talent. That's what Utah had visit over the weekend. They had one of the top offensive linemen in the country come to visit them this past weekend, which was something that it kind of shocked everyone at the time too. And we talked about it on Friday's show, just what it meant landing a visit with a player the caliber of Felix Ojo, who's the top ranked offensive tackle in the country. He's a top 10 player in college football. And look, he went up to his visit on Utah. I'll read the Steve Bartle quote once again, for he said, hey, it was a very good visit. And he said, and Bartle spoke to his source that said Utah knocked it out of the park. And based on the experience this weekend, there's a great deal of motivation to continue on this run for Ojo. So it sounds like Utah is still trying to pursue him. What sucks is that Felix Ojo, according to On3 Sports' Steve Wiltfong, it's down to Ohio State and Texas, or excuse me, not down to, are the main 2, Ohio State and Texas. That's a bummer. I will say, though, 2 things off this. Number 1, it was just incredible that Utah got a visit scheduled in. I mean, Ojo has offers from Ohio State, Texas, and Michigan. Like, we are not just talking about the difference between the Big 12 and some Big 10 teams. We were talking about like the Big 10 and even one of the SEC teams, and Utah's right there. So if Utah can somehow come back and land Ojo, because obviously it's not over till he ends up committing, right? Like that would be massive. And it does sound like, based on those reports, that the visit went well this weekend. I know some of us got excited too, right? Jim Harding did the googly eye emoji, and maybe that just was for Pierce, for him coming in. But obviously, because of just the stakes of Ojo being on campus to visit, we thought maybe that could be him, and that at least appears to not be the case. I'm deciphering Jim Harding tweets the best I can here. So we don't know exactly what he meant by that, but obviously it was understandable that we got a little bit excited. Thought like, oh, maybe that means Ojo. And it's tough to land a player of that caliber. And also to get him commit, right, when he's been a guy who's Texas has been his school. He's from Texas, as we mentioned too, but he'd be a game changer. I mean, the fact that he could step on to Utah, and this is why I feel like Utah's in the conversation for him, right? Is you have Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu. Both those guys are first-round draft picks. Essentially Fano, right? Like Fano came to Utah. He had offers for Oregon and Michigan. He comes to Utah. He plays right away. He's become one of the top players in the country. As good as you can get development, and sometimes sitting out can be the best thing. But if you're ready to play, especially at the P4 level, it's good to get out there and just play. So if Ojo could come to Utah, I just feel like that's something that's incredibly intriguing to him, right? Is like, you just have to be looking at this like, okay, I could come to Utah and have the chance to start all 3 years and still be a part of a successful program. Like that's the pitch. I don't think Texas and Ohio State will allow him to play right away. It's really hard to do that as an offensive lineman, as a true freshman. It usually takes a year to get up to that strength level too. So Ojo is hopefully a guy that will one day be a part of this team. It is an uphill battle right now, it seems, and I am very curious to see how it plays out. Texas and Ohio State, clearly the top ones. Honestly, based on how it's going, I feel like he's going to end up at Texas. Just that was his favorite all along. He's from Texas, and those are his main two, is what he's been telling reporters too. So what he told on 3 reporters. So we'll see what happens. But either way, it was just a win for Utah to get Ojo on campus. Like that was a massive win for this university, for this team too. So either way, Utah making up the difference on the recruiting trail a little bit with some of the other Big 12 teams. And I think it was BYU is now projected to get a 5-star quarterback. So we'll see how that goes. That's obviously, look, that's going to be a blow. Like if your rival lands a 5-star quarterback, that's not all sunshine and rainbows. Now, granted, sometimes 5 stars, like as excited we are about Ojo, the inverse of that would be like, hey, sometimes 5 stars don't work out. And that's where it'd be interesting to see if BYU lands that quarterback, how it ends up shaking out there. Maybe it's going to be great. Maybe he'll be a star, take them to another level. Maybe he won't be. So just something to keep an eye on. It'll be interesting. But yeah, that will hurt if your rival lands a 4-star, 5-star QB and you miss out on the 5-star that you're trying to land, but at least at best in 3rd place for right now. There's no report on where exactly Utah and Ojo stand outside the visit going well. And the fact that he canceled his trip to Oklahoma to come to Utah is massive. Like that was reported by Steve Bartle as well. So that was just a big deal too. But Ojo's a guy that he's looking at Ohio State and Texas as the main two, and hopefully ends up coming to Salt Lake City, but we'll see. Tough battle to overcome either way. I'm curious to see how it all plays out and just continue to monitor everything, especially recruiting related for the University of Utah. There's always news going on, always players and talent to be added. College football is nonstop. And we try to keep it going at Locked On Utes here. So thank you guys for tuning into today's show. Make sure you guys keep it at Locked On Utes every day. We'll keep you updated on all the latest news. Drop your comments and questions as well too. Someone dropped a question in yesterday. I look forward to answering that on a future show as well too. So once again, thank you all for making Locked On Utes your first listen of the day. If you are in the market for a second listen, we recommend the Portal as your second listen. The Portal Show, Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to college football's landscape with the Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We thank you again for listening to this podcast. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked On Utes. We hope to see you again tomorrow.